Welcome to WildHER Wisdom, the podcast where bold meets brilliant and wisdom gets a little wild. Join Shelley and Mary as they dive deep into real conversations about life, leadership, creativity, and everything in between. We're here to spark laughter, light up inspiration, and celebrate the wild and wise woman inside you. Whether you're chasing dreams, finding your balance, or just in need of a good laugh, you are right where you belong. Let's jump into today's journey together. This is WildHER Wisdom.
Welcome to the WildHER Wisdom podcast. Our guest today is the founder and head chocolatier of Bon Bon Bon, Alexandra Clark. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you guys for having me. Like I said, last time we saw each other, I was wishing that we had an extra hour to just chat. And this is something I've been looking forward to now for a couple weeks.
Oh, great. Yeah, when we spoke at a Visa event together, a Visa event for women, and Alexandra was the keynote and I was one of the non-keynote speakers. But but her story was so amazing. As soon as I left, I said, Mary, we have got to get her on the podcast. So glad this worked out.
It's so funny too, because Alexandra, I started reading about you and your life almost sounds like we could make, I don't know if I want to say Lifetime movie. I want to upgrade from that into something a little more fun, but it just sounds like a movie. Let's call it a Netflix movie.
Well, I wonder if it's already out there. You know, they made the movie Chocolat, and I do like tease my husband about being Johnny Depp. So yeah. For a while, I called my dog, who was actually named Lou, Pantouf, just because, you know, I was trying to lean into the movie thing. But I think the movie's already been made.
Maybe this can be the sequel.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes, the sequel that's better than the original. Yes.
Yeah. Maybe it's a Netflix series.
There we go. So I heard this when you spoke, and I know that you share this, but it is fascinating to me. You literally financed your chocolate business through a freak accident.
Yeah. I was in a taxi that got hit by a SUV and then thrown into oncoming traffic. So I was leaving this chocolate show where I was conducting research and doing some interviews for work. I was working as an agricultural economist and jumped in the cab, was heading to my hotel to go meet up with some friends for dinner, and got T-boned by an SUV, thrown into oncoming traffic. And I saw it coming, figured it was the end, and then sort of woke up to my own screaming and had bashed in basically everything below my nose, like diagonally across my face. So It was just like a long period of recovery. And I hated that money that I got because I really just wished, to this day, I'm trying to get to a place where I'm like, okay with the fact that it happened, or happy that it happened. Because I think the people who I benchmark that are the healthiest about things like that in their life are at that spot. But I just wanted to get rid of that money. You know, to me, I wanted it gone. I wanted the whole thing gone. And I think that's a really dangerous place to be when you're starting a business, because that money meant nothing to me. You know, I was 26 years old, and my dad had a talk with me that was like, look, no one's going to take your dog away. She's a liability, you know, and that was my only attachment that I really had at the time was my dog. And so I'm so grateful that I started when I did. And I am grateful, I guess, in that sense, I can say I am grateful for that accident, because that money was money that I was willing to be a little bit, I wouldn't say reckless, because I was pretty calculated, but I wanted to launder it. You know, I called it my bloody money because my cab fare was like covered in blood.
Oh, wow.
Wow.
But so the whole thing I just referred to as my bloody money. And it does feel, that's probably the most like therapeutic thing about it, was getting rid of it and then having it come back in the form of revenue. When I opened my business, I had $7 left. And that was it. Between myself and the business, I had to call my mom on the first day of business to get, I had everything down to the penny, but I forgot that I needed cash to put in the drawer on the first day of retail. And I just hadn't masked that right, because it's not money that's like in or out, you know? And so I had to ask her, I'm like, can you bring like $200 in small bills on your way in?
Oh my gosh.
I didn't have money to go and get change to make change for the customers that were coming in on our first day of retail.
I mean, you learn every day.
You learn. It's all been, I really do think that having your own business is like getting paid to go to school. And I love learning. And learning is not always easy, but I do like looking back and seeing how much I've grown and how much the people on my team have grown, and it is fun to get to be with a group of people and look back and be like, do you remember when we did that? You're like, look at the old picture, and you're like so embarrassed of something that you once were so proud of, and that actually feels really good.
Nice. We love that you really were, you started in the back of a Coney Island, right? And just a room, a back room.
Yeah, both of my roommates in college were from Hamtramck, and I had a bunch of Polish uncles, so Hamtramck was pretty popular in our family. And so when we got paired up in college, it just felt really right. And there was a spot that opened across the street from my best friend's grandpa's house. And I had been looking and looking and looking all over Detroit. I really wanted to start in Detroit proper.
Mhm.
But I do feel like I am a Hamtramckian at heart, and it was inevitable in the end. And the space came up, and it was like 650 square feet and $650 a month. And it had a small dish sink in the back, which was key because that was one of those things that could get really expensive, was installing a dish sink. And so I mean, it was like painted really weird, and it had these drips coming through the ceiling, and it had really gross drip ceiling, and it was perfect, and it was mine, you know? It was like the wrong way on a one-way street where even if you drove by, you couldn't stop to go to the store because you'd have to go around the block. It's like probably the worst retail location of all time, but it didn't matter because it was mine and I could afford it. And that's all that mattered. Um, so I rented that space and started making chocolate, knowing that I could pay the rent if all I did was made chocolate for the hotels that my friends were chefs at. I knew I could pay the rent.
Talk about that sign that you had hanging at that
Oh yeah.
location.
Okay. So we started making chocolate, and I had people who were interested in investing, and this was 10 years ago, and they were old. I don't think they understood what was going on. And they were like, Detroit's just not ready for an artisan chocolate shop. And I didn't think so. I thought Detroit was absolutely ready for it. But I listened because I was being careful, and I was like, well, okay, I'll open on these like hotel contracts and we'll start making chocolate. And then I can open this retail store that I really want to open um, next. Like that'll be like phase two. I'll just like get going. But Detroiters, as they are, or perhaps Hamtramckans as they are, started walking by and smelling chocolate coming out of this little shop and getting really friendly and saying, hey, what are you doing in here? And we're like, oh, we're making chocolate. And they would say, well, can I buy some? And we're like, no, you don't need to buy it, but here, like, you can just have some. You know, it's like our neighbors and like the old lady down the street and the guys who own the liquor store across the street. And then they'd come back and they'd be like, hey, um, that's the best chocolate I've ever had in my life. And they're like, I'm going to my mother-in-law's birthday party. Can I get a whole box of it? And we would be like, well, let's see what we got, you know? And so we just give it to them. And the thing that was happening was like I had designed the packaging so that it had our name on every single piece, so that because so many times I've had really great chocolate and you don't know who brought it, and it's in a no-name box, or the map is upside down, or it's impossible to figure out like which chocolate is which and where they got it. And it just ends up being a whole thing that is important to you, but maybe nobody else. And so people would take this chocolate we were giving them and then bring it out into the world, and people would assume we were a real shop because it looked like a real product. And then they'd come in and they'd say, hey, my cousin brought this to my grandma's birthday party. And you're like, oh my gosh. And you're like, okay, so we're not open. And then you'd give them the chocolate, and it just like kept going and going and going. And finally, my neighbor, he we called him Crazy Mike, but he preferred to go by Zulu, which we always were like, case in point. And Crazy Mike came over and he was like, I am sick of watching you give away this chocolate. And we had to sign on the door. This was the first like, okay, this is the first like line of defense was, we are not open. We are making chocolate. You're welcome to stare through the windows. That's totally fine. You can check us out online. You can look us up on social media. Knock again if you have champagne. Because we were broke as hell. It was me and my best friend's little sister working for me part-time, and there was like zero cash between the two of us, but we both love great champagne. And so it was kind of a deal where it was like, if you bring in a bottle of champagne, we'll do a trade. You know, we don't have to set up sales tax or anything. We don't have to set up that side, and everyone's happy. And it got to the point where we had this old dilapidated cooler that we were using, like an old Coca-Cola cooler. And we were keeping it cold with all of the champagne in the bottom because it was helping to hold the temperature of the refrigerator itself. And we were
Oh
so
my
jacked up, and
gosh.
we'd spend all day just like entertaining customers. Like I'll never forget this guy doing like baby tricks where he would like get his baby to stand up on her feet on his hand and like balancing his baby in this shop while we're drinking champagne and we're supposed to be working. And then like 5 p.m. would come around and we'd close the shades and try to get everything done and get shipments out the door for the next day. It was like mayhem. And that's when Crazy Mike came over and was like, I can't watch this. Like you gotta watch this one day. And so I was like, okay. And I was so embarrassed because I was like, this is not the chocolate shop of my dreams yet. Like this is a weird back room of the Hamtramck at Coney Island. It very much like felt like inviting everyone over to your uncle's basement and then calling it an artisan chocolate shop, like a lemonade stand, you know? And I invited a bunch of friends who are like chefs and chocolatiers, and we had an opening day. I put a picture out on Instagram, and we paid our rent for the year. And the first day that we were open, we were like on
Wow.
orders, and friends were making chocolate. Friends I had worked at other people's chocolate shops were making my chocolate, being like, "Is this right?" You're like, "I hope so." Helping as many people as we could, and it was just one of those. From there to 4 months in, we won the Martha Stewart American Made Awards. We had the Martha Stewart people coming in, and my dad was working to pretend like he worked there, and we were out of white chocolate. It was just like chaos, and it got to the point where this woman came in and was like, what can I do to help? And she was involved in real estate downtown. And we were like, we need 500 square feet of real estate downtown yesterday. Like we need to divide this whole retail thing from the whole production thing because we don't have enough space for both. And it was so funny because I had plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D for failure. Because everybody warns you, like, what are you going to do if it doesn't work?
Right.
But I had absolutely no plan for what if it's wildly successful. And next thing you know, you're traveling around the world doing media tours with all of this stuff because everybody goes crazy about this weird little chocolate shop in the back room of a Coney Island that reminds you of your uncle's house. It's like,
That's like one of the things that really drew me originally when I heard you speak, and Mary when I talked to her about you, is
Mhm.
that you didn't have a plan for success. Like
none.
that it's so wild. Like how did you handle that? Like I know you have your babes who
Yeah.
helped you, but like how did you handle it?
Um, Definitely those people. There was a type of person who was working on our team at that point in time. And um, I always say, like, if I ever went to war, those are the people I would choose. Like, they're the people I know inside and out. They're the people that, like, we love each other, we hate each other, but you know what they're gonna do. And man, you depend on,
Yeah.
like it's
Hmm.
thicker than blood. And it's like Nellie and Margie and Borna. And it was chaos. So it would be like, hey, we started a website and then we sold $7,000 worth of product one day because somebody wrote an article about us. And we were like, and it was just the team that was like, all right, well, we're spending the night here, and roll their sleeves up and get going. Or it would be like, oh, we were just written up in Bon Appetit. Or so now we have to go and do this thing, or there's this food festival. And, you know, this is what's going, and they would just hold down the fort. And there's still one day, and I cannot figure out how it happened, but we had the downtown store, and Margie was the only one in the kitchen, and it was a really busy day of retail that we weren't anticipating. And she walked in with something like 3 or 4 trays of chocolate that she had made by herself that morning and packaged by herself that morning. And that's still like in modern Bon metrics, what she did is still impossible. It's just a crew.
Really?
It was the type of person who was working there at that time. And it was really cool because we were just in a commercial for Adobe, and they wanted to recreate like the early days of Bon Bon Bon. And so we got to have a little reunion, and my mom and dad came in their old like Bon 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 outfits, and
Oh,
Margie and Nellie and Borna and her daughter Nee um, came, and we got to like recreate the beginning of it all.
That's
It's
amazing.
amazing that that spirit of those people, and it's just inherent personality traits of those original people, is still so alive and so black and white. It's like binary, you've got it or you don't, in the culture that we have today. And it makes me so grateful for who was there at that time because I'm not sure that we'd be the same company without that. And I really like working with that type of energy.
So it sounds like the heart of the chocolate is the people, but oh my God, is that good chocolate?
it is so good.
I'm practicing mindful eating now. I wasn't then. And one of the things I regret most is not taking more time with each of several pieces that I had the day that I had it, and remembering it by name. And I kept saying, Shelly, oh my God, Shelly. You have any? It was crazy. So, so good. So
Oh,
good.
thank you. I think that's my hope is that my favorite dessert, I'm not a huge dessert person, which might sound weird, but like I'm just not. But I love an espresso or a cappuccino and a piece of chocolate. At the end of it,
Mhm.
to me, that is like heaven. And I know what really got me so into chocolate is exactly what you just said, is I spent time with one piece that was made intentionally to give you an experience,
Mhm.
you know?
Mhm.
And once I was like, oh, you kind of got me there, then you realize it's a conversation, and that conversation gets to be pretty fun.
Yeah. I was saying every bite has a story. And
Definitely.
you have, okay, go ahead and try a piece, but like savor,
Oh,
because
yeah.
oh man.
Even the way we build them to be two polite bites. So in the pastry world, I worked at the Detroit Athletic Club, and this is the best thing I learned there, which is like for a past hors d'oeuvre, you want it to be two polite bites. The idea being that the person who might be eating that might have their one chance to meet Barack Obama. And so Barack Obama enters the room and they're like, this is my one chance to shake hands with Barack Obama, right? And so they should be able to eat it in two polite bites while they're having this conversation with him. Or if they have to go shake his hand, they have their drink in the other hand, they can shove the whole thing in their mouth and swallow it by the time they get up there to go shake hands. And I was literally measuring people's mouths at the bar before we opened, being like, hi, I'm opening a chocolate shop. Can I measure your mouth? Because it should be that where you should be able to take a bite and then kind of look at it and see like the layers of what's going on. Like you can spend your time appreciating it. But also if you're just like hiding your chocolate consumption, then you can shove the whole thing in your mouth and nobody needs to know that you just ate an entire butter crunch.
Right, exactly.
I adhere to that thesis. I think that's pretty good.
That's a great thesis. I love that thesis. Now, I want to ask one question about your building because I understand that there may be a bit of history to it, depending on who you ask.
Well, yeah. So we were growing out of space and we had new landlords come in and buy the whole building that we were renting. And I was living upstairs and they were like, so we're doubling your rent. And they're doubling the rent for my apartment and for the shop. And so I went to go eat pizza about it. And I went to my favorite pizza place is called Amar Pizza, and it's a Bengali Detroit style pizza place, and it is so good. And so I went down there to go like let off some steam, get some steamy pizza, like, and I'm like huffing and puffing, and the guy's like, "What is going on with you, Alex?" And I was like, "Guys from New York are coming in, and they're buying my building, and they're doubling my rent." And I was like, I can buy a building for that in Hamtramck, you know? And they're like, well, then why don't you buy a building? And I was like, oh, touche. But they had a building. And so I bought this building for $110,000 and it had 3 layers of drop ceiling in it. Like it was an Army Navy surplus store downstairs originally and a church upstairs. And then it turned into a gambling hall upstairs. And then it
Oh
had
my
been
gosh.
an air conditioning place downstairs. And we were still getting bills for that, but it had been a carpet place in the interim. And it was perfect. It was right on Joseph Campo, which felt very fancy because, you know, the grandmas in my life are all women who grew up like buying their Sunday best on Joseph Campo. So it did feel finally like maybe in a Hamtramck-y, still familial way, like I was getting to have that swanky chocolate shop I always like sort of hoped to have and never did. And so we got the Joseph Campo address, and my dad and his best friend built it out. And there's still, so when it was a gambling hall upstairs, um, the tables had been in the same place it's forever. And like even when we bought it, we were sweeping up Hazel Park Raceway tickets from the 70s and women's pantyhose and
What?
all kinds of stuff. It was really a wild time. A dead possum. And but we started to take like the paint off of the door and it said Hamtramck Businessmen's Club members only. And there were two
Mm.
private security plaques on it.
Well,
And
well.
then one of the guys that was working on it was like, hey, I was telling my grandpa about this building and he said he lost a lot of money in here. And so we were like, okay, tell us more, tell us more. And then we found this newspaper article shoved in the wall. There was a bunch of newspaper. It was like insulation around some of the windows. And one of them was from the building getting raided by the FBI.
Oh my goodness.
So
Oh
it
my
had been raided
gosh.
by the FBI twice, and it used to have a skylight in it. But they, after the first raid, they took the skylight out, and then it was raided the second time, we know, because they thought that there was drug activity going on, but it was actually somebody just losing some drug money in what is now our office.
Oh, it just keeps getting better and better. This is way better than chocolate, I can tell you. This is
It is.
this,
Like the
this
weird
story. I
answer
mean,
decision.
I hope we can check in with you about a year from now too, to see what else we can,
Yeah.
curate for
Yeah, see
the
what's
Netflix
next.
documentary, because this has to become one. Did you find that you ran into many naysayers at the beginning of this? People that said it
Yeah,
really can't
I
be done.
think so. And I do I think I blame myself for a lot of it, in that I've learned now that I'm not a great teller, but I'm a great shower. I can show you something and then people are like, oh. But even on our first day open, I was like really frustrated by the number of people that were like, I can't believe you actually did this. Because I'd been talking about it for 7 years. And by talking, I mean like I had dedicated my entire career to learning about chocolate.
Wow.
When my friends were getting like real professional jobs, I was working midnights on the line at the Sanders and Morley factory. And like just insane things where I was like, if you didn't think I was serious about this, like what did you think I was insane? Because like I can't imagine another, but it's because I was using words. And then once it was all in front of them and they could see it and they could taste it and they could touch it, then they were like, oh my gosh. And I was like, I know, of course, this is what I've been telling you about for 7 years. Like, where have you been? And you're like, they've been right in front of me. It's just, I'm not great at explaining that stuff in words. And so I think it was part of it was that. And then part of it was I really love Detroit. And to me, my dad's a carpenter and my mom's a bookkeeper. So opening my business in Detroit made a lot of sense because they were nearby and those are really helpful skills. But more than anything, like it's not like Detroit that I love Detroiters. And Detroit to me is a place that's very fancy because I grew up in the suburbs and we would go downtown for fancy things, what I thought were fancy things. And to me, it was like, you'd have like the guys at the front door of the Fox Theater. And you're like, I can't imagine anyone fancier than the guys at the front door of the Fox Theater, like to this day. And then working at the Detroit Athletic Club, like that felt very fancy too.
Yeah.
And Detroiters are so kind and so tough at the same time. And it's a no bullshit crowd. And they're wonderful and they're not afraid of hard work, but kind of don't mess with them.
Mhm.
Like it's just like the kind of person that isn't there an Anthony Bourdain quote that's like, there's nothing cooler than being able to say you're from Detroit. And I'm not from Detroit. I mean, actually, my business isn't even in Detroit, it's in Hamtramck. But yeah, there's something about being that chocolate shop there, like in that city, and being like, I don't know, I think every like little girl fantasy of being like a fancy lady when I
Mhm.
is all tied up in being a chocolatier for those people. Like I can't, that's probably the coolest thing about my job, or the greatest like honor of it, is the regard that Bon 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 is held in by the city of Detroit.
You're just so authentic and you just exude delight is the word that comes to mind to me around what you do. And it's so refreshing in a world where people are negative and, they don't like their job. And you're just like, I cannot believe I'm living this dream every day. If
Yeah.
you could give, if you could give one bon size piece of advice to other women dreaming of doing their own thing, what would it be?
Well, the best piece of advice that anyone has ever given me was not actually about business at all. It was about triathlon. And I was training for an Ironman triathlon. And the advice was on the marathon. So you swim and then you bike and then you run. And by the time
Mhm.
you get to the run, they say, like, you're so sick of biking, you'll do anything, even if it means you have to run a marathon. And so you get to the run and you're just shot, right? It's an emotional game. And the advice was from Billy Downs, who's founded BD's Mongolian Barbecue, who also happens
Mm.
to be a triathlete and is just like a wonderful human and mentor. And he was like, okay, when you're on that run, you're going to decide you're done and you want to quit the race. He's like, and that's okay. Decide you're done and then keep walking. And he's like, keep walking
Mm.
towards the finish line, because he's like, you're going to think you're done for a solid 15 minutes. And you're going to be walking and you're going to be walking, but at least you didn't decide you were done and you sat down, because by the time you decide, well, I've made it this far and I might as well just go and cross the finish line, you're 15 minutes ahead of where you would have been if you just completely stopped and threw in the towel and decided to pick it back up again. And that's something that I've carried through Bon Bon Bon. I think that idea is probably what carried us through COVID, was the idea we can adapt, but we're not going to shut down completely. We're just going to keep figuring it out and it might be a walking pace. And we were comfortable with that. Honestly, it had been so crazy that we were sort of like, maybe things will slow down a bit. We're like, we're like, it could be a chocolate shop of 4 of us. It's like all the people who are willing to work, and we'll be fine and we'll all work. And then, we'll see what happens. But that's been the best advice. And I think it's the best advice for starting a business is you can get so down on yourself for those moments when you don't make as much progress as you'd like, or sometimes you aren't as motivated to go full bore ahead. But if instead of throwing in the towel and stopping and sitting down, you just keep walking towards that end goal, I think you'll always thank yourself for it. Even if that path changes directions and it ends up being something different, at least you haven't spent your time stagnant.
Makes so much sense. We have the WildHER Wisdom No Filter finale coming up, but I just want to ask you, what's next for Bon Bon Bon? I mean, you've achieved great success. What else can you do? What else would you like to do?
Right now, it's funny. We just opened our Birmingham store, so we're all really excited about that and to see how that goes and to be a part of that community, because some of our favorite friends from Detroit have sort of moved out that way. So it's fun to reconnect and do food stuff out there. But I think that I was in a bit of a rut with Bon 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 for a little while because I achieved what I wanted to know very early on, which was I had this thesis about what if a chocolate shop was about the chocolate and the way the chocolate tasted and not the fancy packaging? What if the chocolate in the box costs more than the box itself? Which I think we're probably one of the only chocolate shops in the country that is that way. There's a lot of really fancy boxes that they put not so great chocolate into. And I mean, there's a lot of fancy boxes that they put really great chocolate into also, but it just seems like we're like a pretty inexpensive curbside recyclable box with some really serious, delicious chocolate in it. And for anyone who loves chocolate, that seems logical. So I had all of these thoughts of like, how about, and I knew my answer pretty early on that I needed to know, which was like, no, you're not wrong. Like there were things to fix and there still are, and it's adapting. But what's cool now that we're 10 years old is that for a while I was like, oh, I've already achieved what I want to do. And I'm not a really money hungry person. I love growth, but I don't need a big pile of money because I would just start a chocolate shop, And so what's cool now is that I have managers at a level where they have questions that they want to answer. And some of them are about their own personal capacity. And some of them are about ideas that they got from other places that they had worked that they want to try out at Bon Bon Bon. And I really love the team that we have, and I trust them to the end of the world and back. And that's what is keeping me motivated right now, is seeing like, okay, like let's go test some of your ideas now. Like let's go find out, how does this work? Or like, let's go into this channel of business we've never even tried before that none of us are technically qualified to do. Like, let's figure it out. And we're in a position where we can say yes, and where we have the kind of people that are ride and die, just like that original crew. And I'm so excited about what that means. I'm not exactly sure what it means. I know that there's like, our online store continues to grow and grow and grow, and it probably means more retail stores, but we'll always wait for the coolest spot in town to open up, like that weird little 500 square foot something in the next place that makes total sense. So it's not anything that we're doing wildly fast, but yeah, it'll be fun to see what it does.
I love how much you talk about your culture, because you're just saying it there. And that's one of the takeaways I had too when you were speaking at the Visa event. Like, you are a culture first organization. And was that something that you always aspired to? How did you get there?
I don't know. I truly believe that places are not, you don't sell your product, you sell an experience. Like there is, we take customer service very, very seriously. Like if somebody has a problem, usually they'll come in really hard and then we'll respond, quickly and really hard also. And then they're like, oh, I am so sorry. I'm so used to having to speak that loud to get attention. And I do love that, but I don't think I was aspiring to be like this real culture first company. I'm more interested in design. Like I love that. But I think one of the things that I'm also really interested in is just people in general. I like people, and I think they're interesting, and I like to try to find the best in people even when they're being difficult. And I wouldn't not like my employees, I don't find that to be with them, but I think I fell in love with chocolate first, and then the next thing I fell in love with was really the people I got to work with and why they were into it too. It's like you have this thing that you love. Um, but it is cool too to be able to go in and talk to customers. Like in chocolate, you're something in between a bartender and a jeweler. Like
Mm.
people aren't coming in because they're drinking a beer about it, and they aren't coming in because they're buying diamonds about it, but they are buying chocolate about it. You get a lot of second dates, like very nervous people before a second date, trying to buy like 24-piece boxes, and you're like, no, no, no. We're doing a casual 4-piece box. They mentioned they like chocolate. We're not being creepy. Like we're gonna bring it in. And I love seeing that part of people's lives. Like there's a couple that got married that met in line at Bon. It's like that's a cool thing.
Wow.
Yeah, so I think that the culture thing is just um if you love something, it's hard not to love everyone else that's around that. And you want to know, and you're really driven by like, why do you like this? Because I know it's weird that I do, but what is it for you? And the answer, because of what chocolate is and how people purchase it, is oftentimes really interesting and super impactful, not just for me, but for everybody on our team. Where, I mean, if it's your wedding, like we're taking custom pieces and custom packaging really seriously. So, or corporate events when people are willing to get goofy. Like we just had we do these custom chocolate cassettes that look like an actual cassette tape, and you can eat them, and they're like a mixtape. We have
Mhm.
Sugar Thai Honey Crunch, which is like our Motown one. And we just had a company do like a now cassette based off of it. Like now that's what I call music. And they just went crazy with it, and it was ridiculous and perfect. And when you're dealing with something like that and making a ridiculous dream come true for them that's edible and out of chocolate, you want to ask them too, like, why?
It's
It's
magic.
absolutely our pleasure. Now tell us about you.
Look, it's my belief that the right bite of chocolate, whether it's 2 polite bites or 5 bites, like I would do, it can change the world. I mean, really, you get those endorphins going, everybody's vibing. This is so good. It just instantly lifts spirits. So I don't know. That's just my opinion.
I don't disagree.
Are we ready for the WildHER Wisdom No Filter finale, Shelley?
Oh my gosh, I'm so ready. Alexandra, this is one of my favorite times of the show because we're just going to ask you a question. You're just going to say the first thing that comes to your mind. There's
Okay.
no wrong answers. It's just whatever comes to your mind. That's the right thing. And we're going to get to know you a little bit. So I'm going to start off because I love this question.
Okay.
What's your power anthem when you need to get in boss mode?
Oh, well, my go-to song, You Can't Keep Me Off the Dance Floor, to I Want to Dance with Somebody by Whitney Houston.
Nice.
Penguin Prison has Don't Fuck With My Money, which when I have to do business things that I'm not confident about, I put that one on. I'm like, don't fuck with my money.
I love it.
If Bon 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 had a mascot, what would she be?
Oh, my dog, Lou, who has passed, but she is absolutely still our mascot. She was just like a little Shiba Inu,
Oh,
but shop dog. And if you look through the shop, you'll see her on all kinds of little like packaging things and things like that. Her legacy has kind of lived on.
Nice. What's one quote unquote guilty pleasure you're done feeling guilty about?
Oh my gosh, that's such a good question. Oh, maybe like going on fancy dates with my husband. I think I have twins and they're 3. And I think in the beginning I felt like, I don't know. Like, I don't know, it felt naughty or something to be like, what am I doing away from my kids? And I mean, at first when they were really little, we'd bring them with us and people would be like shocked when we stood up and we had 2 babies on us. But I think because I love spending time with my kids, I was just like, oh, I felt weird about it. But then just last week we were on a work trip and we went out for dinner and it was just the 2 of us and it was so fun and it was so cool to have them one-on-one where you're like, oh yeah, talking about adult things and I love your brain. And it was one of those things we had such a great time that I realized I'm like, I shouldn't be feeling guilty when we get time together. Like this is essential too. This makes me a good mom to have time like this with these kids' dad, you know?
Mm-hmm.
okay. So, what Bon 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 flavor represents your current mood?
I'm like a mustachio go-to. I think that that's my like That probably is just representative of me as a whole. I have a current fling with Butter Crunch that's like a obsession, but I would call it a crush, you know?
Hmm.
Let's say your like childhood celebrity crush kind of came back on the scene and then looked really great, and you're like, wow, nice, you know? Um, that's Butter Crunch. Whereas Mustachio's like eye rolly me to a fault, where you're like, it breaks the rules, but it doesn't break the rules. It feels like a really classic flavor, but it's actually a bizarre combination that isn't. Um, it's cute. It's like, yeah, it covers all of the bases. It's also one of my favorite pieces that hasn't gotten knocked off of the like original menu. It's still there. So
Mm.
it does feel like my stronghold piece, whereas some of my other favorites got killed, but we're bringing some back for in the fall. We're doing a Back from the Dead collection.
Mm.
Our
Ooh,
favorites that we've killed.
nice. So you just mentioned seeing your celebrity crush. Um, who is your real life wild her icon?
Um, I mean, I have a mentor in this woman named Hannah Millman, who used to be the arts and crafts editor for Martha Stewart magazine, and she's become a dear friend. Um, but meeting her was so important to me because I could see so much of myself in her, and she was a wildly successful woman doing what she was excited about. I mean, no one is more passionate about American apple varietals than Hannah Millman, and you would not think that that was the kind of career that would like take you to the moon, but it is. And I think I met her at exactly the right time. And she's somebody I'd like to be just like her, because when you're in a conversation with her, like you're out in New York with her, and she'll introduce two people and she introduces them both like they're famous, and they're both laughing at each other because they've both seen Hannah do this before. And she'll say things that are like kind of true about both of you, but are like majorly inflated, but it's genuine to her. That's how she sees both of these people. And that's really inspiring to me, is to see the world in the way that Hannah sees the world.
Oh.
And I'm just thankful to have met her. And she's absolutely wild. There's no way of saying that she's not wild. So yeah.
I love
I'll give
that.
it
So
to you.
we've been talking about how your story and so many of your stories sound like they could be a Netflix film. So if this chapter of your life had, you know, a movie title, what would it be? And I also want to know who would play you in the Netflix movie.
So funny. I just had a therapy session and we were talking about this. I was going to say folding boxes, um, because that's my therapist was like, you're really good at folding boxes. And I was like, I know. And I was like, I feel like if I ever wrote a book, it would have to just be called Folding Boxes, and it wouldn't even be what it's about. But I truly love packaging design. And I mean that from all senses of sustainability and sourcing and using unique materials to do different things, and food safety and machinery to fold stuff. Like I'm such a nerd about that stuff and I love it. So I could sit and think about folding boxes all day. And I don't know who would play me. Um, there's some woman in a sitcom that people always tell me that I look like, but I don't know who she is. I didn't have a TV growing up, so I'm relatively culturally unaware. I just had lunch this weekend with someone who's super famous, and I still have no idea who it was. So this is like, yeah, rough territory. I'd like to like phone a friend.
Phone a friend. I love
This
it.
is what I love about you. You are just so authentic. I love this about you. I wish we could keep you on forever because I know there's just so many more stories, but we are going to have to close out this episode of WildHER Wisdom. Alexandra, thank you for coming on and sharing your insights, your story. It's so uplifting. It's so motivational and empowering. Listeners, make sure that you catch us on our socials. You can always find out what Mary and I are up to. And of course, you can visit Bon Bon Bon's website or any of their stores to go try the most amazing chocolate I've ever eaten. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And it's so nice spending this time with you.
To everyone, stay wild and eat all the chocolate.
All the chocolate.
And just like that, beautiful soul, we have wrapped up another episode of WildHER Wisdom. But don't let the journey end here. Come connect with us. Follow us on Instagram, like our Facebook page, and visit wildherwisdom.com to catch up on episodes, grab extra inspiration, and stay part of our WildHER community. And remember, the conversations here are for your inspiration and empowerment, not professional, medical, or therapeutic advice. Trust yourself and reach out to qualified pros when you need to. Until next time, stay bold, stay brilliant, and keep living your WildHER life. You are powerful, you are wise, and you are absolutely unstoppable.